being polyamorous has really improved the quality of my long-term relationship.
But you are probably the first polyamorous person I've ever met.
Oh my god.
You know,
I'm still so cool and unique, guys.
like I knew they existed. Don't get me wrong. You know,
They do.
They. I knew they existed.
The
but
mystery.
did you get ripped from that as well? Did you get?
I
Like,
actually am ripped.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No,
like, I was
actually
gonna
am,
say,
like,
since-
so ripped.
since you've been gardening and shit,
Oh,
like.
can I? Oh,
Damn!
yeah.
I see a little
Thank
bicep
you.
there. We'll drop a link to May's OnlyFans in the description.
It's just me.
Well, just pretty unimaginative. Just one
Punch me in the
picture.
stomach. Punch me in the stomach.
I didn't even know you studied. So you probably told me on that drunk night out. Actually, you studied social anthropology.
Yeah,
I
I'm
also
gonna try
had
and
to
keep it
remind-
under wraps for
Really?
the sake of my reputation.
Why? Is it
No.
like-
I'm kidding. 20 you are, really. To be fair, it is probably the world's most pretentious subject. I'd
What, like the
argue.
type of people on the course? Or?
Oh my god, I'm in love with them all, but I hate them all as well, and that makes it more exciting.
Whenever you ask someone a question, they go, "First of all, love them."
Hey.
Kind of bullshit. No, I get you. They're a good place in your heart, but also they're twats sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like I tell people when I explain like how much of a mind fuck that degree is. I talk about like there's this one essay, and I'm sure she was saying something very interesting, but it was like such dense language, and all I can remember from it was her being like, the Caribbean is a penetrable womanly space that the colonizers came in with their like big cocks and penetrated. I'm like, what is the point of this metaphor, please?
So what
I
they
don't really
the women were more desirable because of the Caribbean.
I think in retrospect, I think it was about like the way that we feminize things that we want to justify dominating. It's about like the intersection of like material domination and ideological domination, like the way that you have to justify your actions.
Like we want a
at the
reason for
time.
everything. Like that's
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's how you get away with shit. Like you could, oh god, I can't make a big comment about colonialism. I mean, the first 5 minutes.
Well, that's how it starts the
book.
Okay, then let's
that
talk.
sums up a social anthropology student.
Yeah,
to the
just
T.
like no small talk. There's just like,
Absolutely not.
have you ever been on a date with one and then you just like, you're not even like, how are you? You just start with the heavy hitters. Like,
yeah, I did bring it into a sexting conversation the other day.
God, no way. Is that what you got?
It wasn't colonialism, it was capitalism. I was talking about
Okay.
fighting the capitalist regime.
Like,
It's not acceptable.
Okay, yeah. So there's no such thing as small talk. You're Be Real as well now. Wow.
No.
You know, you're
It's
the only
almost like it
professional one.
happens at the same
Yeah.
time.
But like, why is there a
It's so
delay?
crazy.
Is there a conspiracy behind it?
Wow.
We don't know. But yeah, let's calm it down. Let's not go straight there. How was your summer? You know, you're now in third year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you get up to?
I was busy. I did an internship at a botanic garden
Damn.
because I have diverse interests.
Botanic garden, is that just where like a really good, is it like a manor house? Is it one of those like mansion? What's a botanic
You've
garden?
actually got it on the head for this one. I expected it
sound
to be very
surprised.
different. No, because I went into it expecting like, wow, eco-friendly conservationists looking to change the world for the better. But it was really just like conventional British manor house gardening, which was a
Right.
real shock to the system. It's just like how they have to make it marketable so they can continue to do all the conservation things. Like a botanic garden is supposed to be about collecting species from the wild
Oh.
and maintaining them in cultivation in case they go extinct, you know? And so there
Mhm.
were species in the garden that were extinct in the wild. And like, I tried to question some of the gardeners about it. Like, how do you see like the import of this garden? And a lot of people will say like, oh, we keep this species in case we want to reintroduce it into the wild. Realistically, that doesn't actually happen, which is
Right.
interesting.
Damn. Yeah, so you started this job like thinking, oh, I'm going to make a change. I'm doing some ethical here.
Yeah.
And then just the more you learn about it, you were like, shit.
Exactly. And it's weird being, because I'm a community gardener, I run a little community garden. And I really focus on like sustainable growing practices.
Mm.
And so I went in with all of my artsy fartsy like organic growing methods and shit, and then they're like, we're gonna spray everything with chemicals.
Yeah, damn.
It's
You
all
like the
gonna
new
die.
hip kid on the block,
Exactly.
and they were just like, "Nah, we're not having this. We're 50 years in the past."
Exactly. And you could see actually how dysfunctional some of the gardening methods were. They're just really embedded in like tradition. So
I think a
they
good way
stick.
to sum you up, mate, is when we were last. Well, I've only met you once before, but we were drinking, right? And we were going to the next pub or something. You're like, guys, wait, I can show you my garden. And then you showed us all your garden. Remember?
I do that every single time I get drunk. Pretty much, if we go anywhere near my garden, absolutely, you're having the tour.
I want to go visit it again. It was nice.
Lovely pictures of some of your mates having a sword fight with like various gardening tools.
We'll show them if they allow us to show. We'll put them on screen.
Maybe don't get me in trouble with the council.
No, but
It
yeah,
was a special time.
but with these people that I'm guessing they're generally older or they've just been there for so long that is how to do it. But they're not changing anyway. There's no kind of effort. Like what?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of it is in the division of labor within horticulture. It's like you have the sort of desk jobs and you have the gardener jobs, right? And it's like the desk job people are really stuck in this like, you know, all of the theoretical knowledges that you have. So it's like, oh, tilling is a great way to prepare the soil for the next season. They don't see the impact of that in the garden. And so you get the people on the ground complaining about the fact that that's actually broken up a load of the weeds. And so we have a massive weed problem now, because even though initially it was a great way of doing like a quick fix on a problem, it ended up sort of having really negative consequences that then don't feed back as well. And I think that's more where you get this sort of sticking point. It's like those different pathways are so disconnected, and like the hierarchy within those spaces prevents proper communication. And so the knowledge you actually gain from working with the plants, which often contradicts the knowledge that's coming out of the big, you know, person in charge's office, it doesn't, you know, get communicated, and then you end up with problems.
No, I just love the idea you're there for the summer stirring up shit, you know, you're gonna storm to that office and just obviously you're not, but I feel like if there's anyone to do it, you would have done that.
I was not just sowing seeds for plants, but sowing the seeds of dissent. I would imagine. Yeah. No. The dissent was there, but I did spend every opportunity I had being like, so what are your problems with the administration? I got all the goss, man. Gardening goss is
I can just imagine
good.
like Paul just trying to do some gardening, just chilling out, right? And you're just like asking him all these questions and like not knowing half of what you're on about as well. I love that.
I don't think anyone ever does, including myself. But it makes things really exciting. But it was like I had this lovely long conversation with one of the gardeners about like how you can talk about like loving plants, and it's like how we really see that as like the actual sort of labor of care in the garden. Like a lot of these things that I'm sort of studying in my degree, because I cater it towards plants, like ideas of like family, but how that can relate to like plant life actually map onto people's experiences really well. They're not like foreign ideas. Everyone's like, yeah, I do see like the garden as a lover. Like this one guy used to maintain a really big estate garden by himself, and he described the way that he like engaged with it as like like a marriage, you know, like he'd have to put a lot of labor in through the day, and it was hard, and it was emotionally taxing and physically taxing, and then in the evening seeing all of the changes occur, he'd be like, oh, it's like you've made up with your lover at the end of the day. People make sense of the world in that way. Like it's not actually, I don't think like me coming in with my silly little ways of thinking about things are actually foreign to gardeners on the ground often.
No, that makes sense. I mean, they say the most satisfying or the most happy people are jobs where they are serving people. And in a way, they're serving the garden, they're upkeeping something. And we are quite simple in that nature that the most the most happy people do those kind of jobs. I imagine a banker not being that happy when he goes to bed at night. But yeah, that's interesting. Do you ever see a gardener as a lover? Like, do you is there anything romantic when you keep a garden, or like, do you relate to that guy when he says he?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe not a gardener as a lover, but like
No, sorry, the garden as your
sorry,
you're
not
married to the
gardener.
garden.
Yeah. Like I see it sort of more as like a family relationship.
Okay.
Right? Like to me, there's only a few steps of difference between the conversations you have with the people you love and the work you put into those relationships, and the conversations you have with your garden and the work you put into that relationship, right? Like these are reciprocal relationships. I water my garden, it grows. You know, like I feed it, it feeds me. You know, like we spend time together. I learn about the plants I'm growing through spending that time and seeing how things change. And I think in a really meaningful way, you know, they become important, if you want to be especially controversial, like people to me.
Okay.
And I also just think it's actually a way of seeing things that I think is really like normatively helpful. I think we probably should see plants as family. A lot of cultures do. A lot of cultures like do start to think, or have thought for a long time, about plants as part of sort of an extended family, and that means we feel a duty of care towards them, and we recognize that our well-being depends on their well-being. That's a lot of what family is about.
Wow. I've definitely been walking in a park and I've seen a guy playing music for a plant before. Like I've seen that before, right? And you know, I've
start doing that.
Maybe, you know, most people look at that guy and go weirdo, right? Most people. But I get it. It's all like relative. Like if you surround yourself and you're gardening every day, instead of, you know, say my day to day is quite social, I'm meeting different people, meeting this, those are your people. It's all relative, right? And you kind of...
It does sound like you're calling me a loner. It does absolutely
yeah,
like
I've just formally just called you an absolute loser.
Yeah, but that you're okay with it. Like it's okay that I have no friends.
I'm sure you'll find out that I'm the same level of loser throughout this episode.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, I should probably preface, welcome everybody to episode 19 of the Ed Squared podcast. We've got the lovely May here today. Lovely May. A friend of Ollie, if you guys are a fan. And we got Katie in the background. Googling stuff for us.
Katie, our fave.
Yeah.
My mother. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. It's too soon.
Nah, but we've got a beautiful garden out at Katie's as well. She's got a nice garden.
It's all right.
Yeah, I know it's the rain's down, but yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, man. So we move on from that. You've got a lot of love for plants and stuff. Do you think now you're gonna always be doing that? So you do, when you're back at uni, you have that garden as well. When you finish uni, you're gonna keep it up as well. Do you think that's always? Do you think that's something that keeps you sane? Because I hear a lot of people who have like these kind of jobs which are fundamental as people who serve people food, people who plant. Because nowadays more and more people's jobs are in front of a screen or involve technology. And I think, well, I can sense from you, quite a happy person. Do you think that's something that maybe I don't know? What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because obviously there's like a lot of research that just supports the idea that being out in nature and working in nature is really like beneficial for your mental well-being. We've known that for a long time. The reason that might be, we don't necessarily know. Right? And I think it's interesting that you relate it to other jobs where you're sort of caring and nurturing, because maybe that's it. But I think even more than that, being in nature tends to have those positive effects. Maybe this is, you know, a social anthropology student's worst nightmare, having to say it, but maybe there is something like inherent about the joy that we gain from being outside. I always think that like being surrounded by the really overwhelming sort of sensory experiences that you can have in nature is always really meditative. I think it replaces a lot of the jumble in your brain with these lovely calming sounds and textures and smells. And you'll find that, like, I've done a decent amount of research, as in reading theory about gardening, and a lot of like ethnographies that study gardeners, sort of like do interviews and the like, will find that people really focus on those sensory experiences when they're gardeners. Like if you get a tour from a gardener through their garden, they will be stopping every 3 minutes to be like, look how beautiful that is. Look, can you hear that?
Yeah.
Like smell this mint. There's something so pleasurable about having those sensory experiences, something so calming. I think.
And we don't, maybe it's because it's so natural to us. It's so, well, obviously we've only recently been living in the grand perspective of everything, right? That maybe, I don't know if anything will ever replace that. But yeah, if you're in a forest, right, well, you're stressed out, your job or your wife is giving you something, but then you sit down in a forest,
ball and chain.
But then you sit down in a forest and you're surrounded by trees, rustling leaves, like nothing. You just feel insignificant, like those problems seem insignificant, and you focus on other things. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think, it could be something inherent. We don't know. It could be just how different it is. We are so divorced from the natural on a daily basis. And you can be like, oh, but there's the tree outside. Probably can't name 5 people that know what type of tree that is, how it grows, pay attention to.
I'm one of those guys. Probably.
Are you a tree person?
No, I'm one of those guys who couldn't.
Oh,
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were saying. Yeah, but maybe we could do a little tree quiz.
That's so disappointing.
You thought I was just
such a letdown. Yeah,
I've actually read up on several trees. No, so you also have done a lot of theory behind this as well. But it's interesting to see the mentality behind it. Yeah, is there anything like weird or like unexpected facts you've got of a garden? Like as a gardener, like you don't usually see them at the club. Like I've not really talked to many gardeners, and I guess I'm talking to one today.
There's not a lot to talk about sometimes. I feel like I could go on for days about all the interesting things that I know about plants, but no one's gonna love my fun like, oh, cherry trees, they have a little gland that secretes nectar, but it's not on the leaves, which is normal. No, it's actually, sorry, I've lied. It's normally on the flowers.
Damn. Get it
Spreading
right.
misinformation since 00.
But it's personal, right? Like you said, my grandma used to show me around her garden. I was 7. I wanted her to give me 20 quid at the end of the week. So sure, I said the trees were good. Right, sure. But was I really respecting the trees at age 7? No. But I think maybe that's because it's personal to you. Like it's just with many things. If I showed you, oh, look at this cool edit, that's why I'm an editor. Yeah, you'd maybe be polite and go, but you don't appreciate it as much as me, right? And maybe there's it's natural, but it's also personal, maybe as well. Yeah.
But yeah, nothing's more fun than finding a fellow gardener and just going chaos mode.
Damn.
And no one else gets it, man.
Damn,
it's
man.
like me and gardeners against the world.
Yeah,
it's actually really like alt and cool.
Did you get ripped from that as well? Did you get?
I actually am ripped.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say
since so ripped
since you've been gardening and shit.
Can I?
Damn.
Yeah.
I see a little bicep there. No, not a little bicep. Big. Can we get a zoom in? Damn.
I know. And I will show them off every single chance I get.
We'll drop a link to May's OnlyFans in the description.
It's just me.
Well, just pretty unimaginative. Just one
Punch me in the stomach. Punch me in the stomach.
Damn, okay.
That's it. Yeah, if you find me on the streets of Manchester, please do ask if you can punch me in the stomach.
Is that like a kink you have?
No, it's to prove how strong my
Oh yeah, sure. Training it, yeah. Okay. I've been taking a lot more cold showers, that's probably making me feel better about myself. But also that's because I'm such a warm person as well. I think you can attest as well. I'm genuinely, I think it's a ginger thing as well. We react incredibly sensitive to heat and cold. So whatever you're feeling right now, I'm feeling it like 2 or 3 times more.
That's really rough, man.
Yeah, so can we get some sympathy comments, please?
Jeez,
yeah, but another reason I wanted to bring you on the podcast, mate, is because I think this is kind of, I may be wrong, but you are probably the first polyamorous person I've ever met.
Oh my god.
You know?
I'm still so cool and unique, guys.
Yeah, you probably don't think it's cool and unique, probably because maybe you're surrounded by so many people. But I was like, oh, okay. Like, I knew they existed. Don't get me wrong. You know,
They do.
I knew they existed.
The mystery.
Yeah, the mystery. But yeah, I kind of had you on because there are a lot of kind of maybe there's some misconceptions about polyamorous relationships, and I kind of just wanted to learn more about it. And I'm sure there's a lot of room for the general public to learn about it, right? Do you think? Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's becoming a lot more common. I think I've seen attitudes change in the past year. Even it's sort of the way I describe it to people is it's like a year ago, everyone was like, wow, I've never met a polyamorous person before. I don't think you're real.
What they did? Where they were just like, you a digital image? Like what? They just damn.
That I'm denying my true nature, I think.
Right, okay.
You know, on a really fundamental way.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because real, you know?
You just have them people who just go, can you stop bullshitting now? Can you just, like,
exactly.
They just don't believe you.
But I'm used to it, because being queer, you get it as well.
Yeah. No, yeah. I don't know. How was that? So you growing up, how was that? And like, did you always know? Like, can you tell me a bit about, like, let's go from the beginning, then how you are now?
The whole narrative.
Like, maybe not like a 5 hour.
Down and
like, series, but you know.
I love talking. Well, I think I maybe figured it out, though I don't really like that phrasing, and I will tell you why. When I was quite young, like in my first relationship, I was really, really uncomfortable with the fact that my partner at the time was, you know, only allowed to see me, and I had to sort of be the best me ever, otherwise I was going to lose them forever. And I think that maybe gets to the core of what a lot of people see in polyamory, or at least I've heard a lot of people talk about, which is that it's a lot of pressure to have to be the prototype of a good partner. Right? Like there's a lot of expectations that go into being the only person someone can have sex with and be romantically involved with, and who has to like build a life with someone else. Yeah. Like totally. That can be really overwhelming. And I found it really overwhelming in my first relationship. But I didn't encounter like the term polyamory until I was about 17. And then I thought about it and I was like, oh, that might work for me. But I don't think it's like an inherent thing.
No.
It definitely is like a choice that people make according to, you know, what would feel comfortable for them. I don't think I could ever function within monogamy because I think that my relationship with it would be uncomfortable. I think I would depend too much on that person. Like I have a tendency probably towards like over investing in certain people anyway, and so I think it could be a dangerous combination. And just like I also just don't think it makes sense to me, you know. Like I know that monogamy makes sense to a lot of people, but we all know that it's not the only way to relate to people. A lot of people want to argue that it's like natural and we grew up this way, and it's the only way that we'll ever function, A, in society, and B, in terms of our biology. Like there's this idea that like our biology is inherently linked to monogamy. There's actually a lot of evidence that suggests that's maybe like complete bullshit in the sense that like I think I read something somewhere. I could be spreading absolute nonsense, but I've definitely like heard the idea that species that have like female vocalization during sex tend to be species that have social systems where like females make friends through having sexual relationships with one another, and the like so something that would resemble polyamory more. And that doesn't mean I'm fucking all my friends.
Damn.
To be clear.
How many of your friends have you no, damn. That's interesting, because like that would make sense though if there was a society female socializing. Females are a lot more, well, especially earlier on as well. Females mature a lot earlier, socially able to like express feelings a lot more. Like today at work, I work in a shop. This guy had some sort of flu. He was awful. He was ill, but he just didn't want to admit it. He was like literally he looked red in the face, and he just wouldn't admit his feeling. He didn't want to. But my example is that makes sense in terms of like us advancing. I think socially, women, maybe it comes a bit more natural. Oh, I don't know, or maybe that's how we're raised as guys, masculine kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't. Often, you're gonna run into an impossible question when you try and like just discover whether something's like social or biological, right? Like my favorite argument against like essentialist biological arguments is that like you can't ever divorce these outcomes from their social context. So even if there are biological influences in the social forms that we end up having, there is always the social on top of that, and like in a lot of ways our biology will be denied by the society we live in as well. So I don't think it's like a great normative argument, the idea that's like, oh, it's inherent, whatever. But I do agree. I think men, and I think a lot of people have found this, men struggle a lot more to adjust to polyamory than women do. Even though they're more likely to suggest it in monogamous relationships, which is really interesting. But I think a lot of that could be about societal expectations of masculinity, like the idea of being, good enough, and the idea that you have to be really sexually jealous, because that's how you keep yourself safe.
How many guys at university have you interacted with gone like, the classic straight guy is like, oh, I'll have a threesome if it's just two women. So I reckon you can very clearly tell the difference between someone who is just looking for a threesome or is polyamorous, right? Do you get what I'm trying to say? Well, what you just said earlier about that guy is just like, yeah, I want a threesome, because there's a difference, right? One-off threesome versus full-time polyamory, right?
Yeah, a lot of people sort of conflate polyamory with just like sex things as well, right? It is like, oh, I'd like to be sexually explorative. It doesn't really get to the essence of it, really. But I don't know. I actually haven't encountered this monster.
Oh, maybe just between my guys friends. I know that.
Okay.
I'd say like, well, I have a lot of mainly straight friends, and if you ask them if they would have a threesome with two girls, I think most of them would go. And I think that's more coming from a place of well, this is a sexual act, and I think sometimes men can separate that to a relationship easier, but also because they just don't see it as a relationship. I think I don't know. I just know a lot of guys that do that. But going back to earlier about what you're saying about like socially compared to biologically, I think it's interesting in history because we've gone from a point where our biology has dictated mostly where we have gone socially, but now in the recent years, socially has dictated where we are biologically. Like we see a lot more people undergoing surgery because of their belief about how they feel where they're born. I think that's interesting as well to talk about.
Yeah,
right?
But I also think that that's maybe older than you might suggest, right? Like there's good evidence to suggest that the way our hands evolved like happened in conjunction with the way our use of tools evolved, right? Like, and our use of tools would always be something you'd consider like really cultural, right? And so like for the longest time, our culture has been informing the way that our brains and our bodies develop as well. I think probably you'll find that the most compelling argument in this sort of situation is that really talking about the biological and the social separately is a very difficult thing to do. And though we separate it that way for academic study, it doesn't really reflect the world that we live in very well, and maybe like leads to some problematic ideas like the idea that we naturally are this way or naturally that way. Very reductive.
Yeah, naturally this way, naturally that way. Yeah, because I always thought about that, like there's guys who because I had another thought as well. Are there straight men or straight women who that actually are, they could be gay, but their environment and their upbringing has voiced that out so much. Like I had that other feeling the other day, and I was like, surely that happens more than we think. That kind of like shut out just because of our environment or how we were raised.
Oh yeah, interesting. It's a really interesting question, especially when you get into queerness. Like, what our biological constraints are there? Because obviously you get plenty of people that insist that the only reason they're attracted to the people they're interested in is because they were born this way, and obviously that's been a way that queer people have justified their validity for so long. I think the sentiment maybe is moving past that, but obviously we know that these things are really difficult to change.
I think I struggle to have a conversation with someone where they are so strongly in their belief they're not willing to change slightly. Like, I think that's it for me, is that thing of, well, also there's echo chambers, things like that. It's easier now with the internet to, for your own beliefs to be justified, and you don't feel the need to change, right? But on the other end of the spectrum, there's more of us on this planet, and we are more exposed to different ideas. So it is interesting, but it's, I don't know. Yeah, because I think it's interesting, right? If I was to say to you, me and you play this game all the time. Well, not all the time, but we always try and guess. Juicy. We always try and, you know what gaydar is, right? So I guess, how good would you say yours is?
Fucking awful.
Awful,
really
mad.
Awful.
Yeah. I'm going to put this out. I think I probably have like a 6 out of 10 gaydar. You know what I mean? Oh. It probably wouldn't be as good as, say, other people.
Think most people think they have a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, gaydar. Yeah. I think most people probably think they're better at it than they are. But I'd say I'd put myself up there.
Okay.
I'd enter a couple competitions if it was in the Olympics, like,
and be humbled.
Like there's maybe, but line 10 guys up or 10 women up. I think I'd be better at judging the guys though. Weirdly, do you think?
Interesting. I think a lot of people essentialize queerness in men more.
Yeah, no, that's me.
This is an intervention.
No, this no, but that's true.
You are the problem.
If you listen to the start of this podcast, most of my questions or the way I phrase them were probably like, a guy or a guy. I have tried, but you see that the programming or what I've been brought up to or what I've just seen more is probably gay men, right? So that's probably how I'm going to phrase things sometimes.
And I think also like, because of like the relative invisibility of queer women and non-binary people, queer men have been subject to more sort of media stereotype potentially. That means that you can only really imagine either the masculine heterosexual or the very feminized queer man, right? And I think that means that we maybe think that we have a better grasp on queerness that we do. And you could also argue that maybe there's an element of it. Queerness in men is often seen as more threatening, and so we don't have as many queer men that maybe sort of sit somewhere in the middle,
right?
Coming to terms with that potentially.
That might be also down to the fact that socially, I'm not sure about queer men, but just our ability to talk. I think it's much more socially acceptable for women to talk to each other, and therefore they are more likely to understand themselves better through talking to someone else.
Yeah, perhaps.
Wow. But yeah, a lot of this podcast is just going to go, well, perhaps. But we don't know for definite.
That's not a lie.
I know. But it's for my curious brain. It shouldn't be frustration, but I wish I was around here, in the world 500 years in the future to see where we turn out.
Don't we all? Yeah. I'm so excited to grow old and for everyone to be like, you suck, man. You're so backwards. I'll be like, I'm so glad that you did it better than us. I don't care if I'm the problem anymore.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be like immortal, because that would be horrendous. That would be such a sad life. Yeah. But 200, live to 200.
Yeah. Maybe just skip for a
Okay.
little bit and then
Yeah.
die immediately.
We could cryogenically freeze ourselves. Is that the word?
Oh.
Have I got that word right?
Yeah, some kind.
Yeah,
some
one
kind
of the
freezing.
scientific words, freeze. That's
Do
the
you
word.
reckon you'd completely thaw at the same time, or would you like have one arm that's just stuck?
Oh,
for
I'd
a
want to
while?
do a cool
These are the
pose.
big
I'd probably do like a
questions.
cool hand sign or like a cool.
just in case you end up walking around.
Yeah.
stuck
You know, like
that.
like a janitor's like wheeling my frozen body around. I want to look cool, right?
Oh, of
I don't want people
course,
making fun of
yeah,
me.
yeah.
You know.
in the frozen city.
Why is it Dodds there?
That's gotta
What is that? The way your brain went, yeah, I'm that person.
If- If you didn't hear
only
that,
be America.
Katie just pointed out. If you didn't hear that, yeah, I shouldn't have used Janet. I mean, what caretaker? Caretaker. There you go.
I know how it's in the school as well.
Whoa, and
Yeah.
it's also taking care of you whilst you're frozen.
Damn.
Damn.
How
God,
do
I'm
you
good.
think, May? How do you think the whole thing? Not the whole thing. Polyamory. So the whole thing.
I love
no.
this so much. Just
How do
you
you-
struggling
Yeah, just like
with your
tiptoe.
words.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
How do you
just-
think polyamory is like portrayed in like say documentaries and like from what you've seen? Because the one thing that comes to mind for me was this like American documentary, and it was very much the takeaway I got from it, and this was before I probably met you, was in polyamory there is always someone worse off. Now this is just from this watch, and I wouldn't say I have this view now, but the way this was edited was this woman dating two other men, and now it was edited in a way that showed this man and woman. One of the men was much more sexually active with the woman, much more socially kind of adept, like in a way. And the editing and the way they showed this third guy, it showed him as a jealous person, a sad person. I wondered what you thought about that, like, because I don't know enough about it, and of course it's case by case with these relationships, but that made me thinking, because coming from, I'm a monogamous guy. Yeah. Well, what do you think about that? Like, is that weird that I thought that? Is there, because of course there's relationships which don't work out, there's really things with problems, but is there specific problems that you encounter in polyamory? Is it that are unique to it?
That's interesting. I'll answer this in two parts. So like it's really interesting, that sort of media portrayal. I think you can very easily see being embedded in the fact that we all want like a scandalous little narrative to bite into, and like the entire reason that polyamory is so interesting to a lot of people is because it's so crazy and different and whatever. And if you create a documentary that's like, actually it's really pretty mundane, May is just sitting with her two partners on the sofa shoveling popcorn down her gullet and watching Love Island, you're not going to get as many viewers. I would argue that you could create just as shocking a documentary with your average monogamous relationship, right? Like, I feel like polyamory, the way people talk about it and the way people like experience that nervousness about like, oh, you sure this isn't like really harmful to people? You sure this is like the right thing morally? Is they hold it to this perfect standard. It's like, oh, like, but people experience jealousy, and oh, you might have difficulty managing like time conflicts. Find me a single monogamous relationship where you don't have those same conflicts,
right?
It's just not necessarily conflicts between partners, it's conflicts between, you work until 7 at night.
Gary's watching too much football. He loves the football more than Sandra.
Gary's really staring very hard at the butts of those footballers, and Sandra's really quite concerned about that.
Why is he only watching female football all of a sudden? He's
weird.
A radical right-wing person. Why is he watching
Gary's we're really bulking out this character. Do you know this man? I don't.
Yeah, he's actually a real guy. It's actually
you.
just my dad.
It's you. Oh my God. This is a confession.
Yeah, I actually go by Gary. Damn. No, that's interesting. Yeah, that was kind of what I got from it. I work in TV, so I know things are dramatized, and that's the thing. But yeah, also I think of polyamory, and I look at that and I just go, how do you have the time for it? But the way it was interesting, because it was actually opposite. the way you phrase it to me, and I don't want to misquote you here, but is the fact that it's a lot of pressure to devote yourself to one person. It was kind of the opposite of what I thought it was going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can be busy, especially because even though at the heart of polyamory, for most people, at least for me especially, it's about deconstructing what we expect from a partner and taking what works for us as two individuals, and sort of working from that basis. You do have those expectations of monogamy. So you do have this constant narrative about what a relationship should look like that demands you spend a lot of time and you do this and do that. And so sometimes you find yourself, really navigating that time conflict. At the moment, I'm definitely finding that I'm in quite a new relationship, sort of a month old, and I have a much older relationship that's been going on for 5 years.
Right.
And I have something casual going on. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, my schedule is crazy.
Your Google Calendar must look insane, dude.
Gorgeous.
But instead of like meeting at 5, it's actually just incredible. Love it.
But I think that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. For me, polyamory looks like not necessarily having to spend as much time with each of those partners. And that might sound really confronting to a lot of people. But I see it as something that, if you think about it, it can be really beneficial. I think we live in a world where we're really divorced from one another, and we're forced into very small social units that aren't very resilient. Often, I'm not saying that's always the case, but it can be the case. And so for me, the function, this is such a horrible way of like making it seem like it's not emotional and not like full of love, and it is full of love. But for me, it really helps to keep my social world diverse and therefore me independent and healthy, right? Like, it means that if I'm suffering in one relationship, my whole world doesn't fall apart. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that is really like something that's very healthy for me. So even if like a lot of people are like, oh, you're being greedy and you're taking so much and it must take so much, it's giving so much. And it probably is a lot more labor than monogamy because of the social context that we exist within, right? Because it involves so much unlearning and so much dealing with narratives that contradict it.
You're having to explain it all to me today.
Oh yeah.
Exhausting,
if I didn't love this, then if I didn't love the sound of my own voice, we'd have issues.
We'd have it. Another thing I wanted to talk about with polyamory was communication. Surely that's works differently, and how that works. And of course, it's case by case, but maybe for you anyway. One, like how you communicate between your different partners, and is that different to a casual relationship as well?
Oh God, I could really get into this. Yeah, polyamorous people will always be talking about communication, because there are more things that you have to talk about, because we rely less on these sort of like preconceived narratives of what a relationship looks like. So you're doing a lot more sort of navigating.
You're kind of writing the book in a way. In some ways, you're kind of paving the way.
Yeah, I do think that's what a healthy relationship looks like across the board, though. I'll be pretty uncontroversial for the most part, but when it comes to like suggesting that not everyone benefits from being polyamorous, for sure. I think everyone benefits from the wisdoms that you have to come to terms with in polyamory, which is that, and I've said this before, that you need to learn to build the relationship without that preconceived narrative of what it should look like.
Right.
I think that will end up a lot healthier. So yeah, and in some ways, we have to communicate more, but it doesn't feel like a fundamental break. You know, it doesn't feel very different. The way I engage with it is I have separate one-on-one relationships, and it doesn't actually feel really radically different within each of them.
Okay.
Like, I think one of the most surprising realizations for me as someone who started to practice polyamory relatively recently, actually, I know I said earlier that I discovered, or like I started to identify with the term polyamorous pretty early. I only really started having multiple partners quite late on, because it's just about, you know, finding the right people, you know. But once I started to actively practice, one of the big realizations is just how normal it is. You know, it's not actually this like crazy different experience that feels so fundamentally different from relating to a monogamous partner. It's all very normal and all very functional in my experience.
Yeah.
You know, and so it doesn't feel like a different form of communication really at all. It's just the same shit that you have to do,
right?
To relate on a really intimate level with anyone. Even like you could relate it to, like, you know, we all have like close family relationships or close friend relationships that we have plenty to talk about and talk through within, right? And it doesn't feel like there's sort of like a conflict between those separate relationships at all.
No, I mean, less said. Well, definitely some conflict in my family, but less said than that. No. But no, that's interesting. I think when I was talking about communication, it was more like, does it differ per partner? Because obviously you have different personalities. Sorry, maybe I didn't make that clear. But firstly, how aware is one partner of the intimacies of others? And you know, you said there's no rule book, but is there an expectancy, like is there an expectation of clarity and honesty?
It's not really something I've actively thought about very much, but I do, as a general thing, think being very open about the way you relate to other people is the right way. It does bring up some difficult feelings. Like, jealousy is a real part of the way that, you know, I experience my relationships, at the moment, at least. But I think the only way you can work through that is through being really open. So I have, obviously, I mentioned earlier, I have one relationship that I've been in for nearing 5 years. And she knows everything that happens to me, and I mean everything. So she learns every single little thing that happens in my other relationships, and they, like the other people I relate to within sort of my sort of romantic and or sexual life, are aware of that. You know, they're okay with it, and that helps keep my longer term relationship happy and healthy, because it doesn't feel like there's any unknowns that could quickly sort of surge up and ruin everything. It doesn't happen the same way in my other relationship, interestingly, just because the way we relate to each other is very different. We have a lot more independence, and we value the independence that we have from one another a lot more. But I will always be open about certain fundamental things. Like, they will always be things that I make a point of mentioning, sort of like things pertaining to, obviously, like sexual health. So like if I'm seeing a new person, or I've had sex with someone new, or things pertaining to, like, even I'll mention things like new romantic partners for the sake of like acknowledging that whilst navigating monogamous narratives, you know, it can be really tricky to see your partner start to see someone new, because we're taught that that's a threat to us, you know, even though it isn't necessarily, right?
Especially if like, say someone who hadn't been polyamorous, or say a monogamous guy or girl was dating you and just jumped into it and is just learning about that. They may later down the line adopt that and be polyamorous themselves, but yeah, that's what I was saying. It was difficult because, like you said, you've had a partner for 5 years, and these people have basically just popped up, and these other partners you have. Yeah, no, it's just these. From my background, obviously monogamy. I mean, I think even 5 years ago, I didn't even know that the phrase. I probably didn't even know polyamory was a thing. But it's so there is that question because it's something that I've never had to think about, and maintaining multiple relationships, right? And I think the misconception is like we said before, how the fuck do you do it? How the fuck do you keep up with it? But yeah, that's interesting. You said it's something I'll take away from this is the fact that you said we're still writing it, kind of thing. That's interesting to me. Wow. Yeah.
And it is just like, I don't know, it's interesting talking about specifically this and like the differences between my relationships, because obviously one of them looks much more conventional,
right,
in the sort of proximity that we have. So like, and I think it's really important to put a caveat on that. And say,
what do you mean by one of them looks more conventional, like a conventional relationship, or
yeah, right, like the whole like, oh, they're my best friend, I tell them everything, right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to say that doesn't mean I practice a form of polyamory that ranks my partners.
Right,
it's like how you don't really rank your friends. You might say that you have one friend that you feel more comfortable with, or that you have like certain levels of intimacy with, but they are just fundamentally different relationships. It doesn't make sense to compare them in that way. So I really want to put a caveat on this and say it's not that I have a primary partner and that I see other people on the side. It's that I have very many different partnerships that are unique and valued the same to me. There won't be any sort of like active prioritizing of one partner over the other as much as I can avoid it. I don't think that's healthy.
I think that's good that you preface that though, because I think even I was swaying on that. I think as soon as you said, oh, you've been with her for 5 years, you think, well, that emotional connection you built up, the amount you know about each other, you'd go, well, surely they, if you had to save one of them out of a burning house, you'd save her. But that is interesting. Wow. Then I'd kind of ask, is there any kind of other ways of expressing, like, is there any other misconceptions about polyamory that you think is important to talk about? I think we found out so much so far, but
misconceptions. It's so interesting because I've been in it for long enough that I forget how you lot think.
Yeah.
It's so weird and odd. I sort of always want to sit here. Exactly.
You could ask me a question. Yeah.
Well, why do you feel like only having one partner is what you can manage? And this is not me challenge. I'm sorry. I feel
no. This is what we're here to do. Sorry, my girlfriend is also behind the cameras here. No, yeah, I think it would be I think a main thing for me is my upbringing. I think that's with everyone a major factor of how you are now is your upbringing, and also just what I'm naturally like attracted. I think there was a lot of benefit in that connection with one person, and being you're talking about that reliability, relying on the other person. I think that's, for me, is what makes it special in some way. Relying on that one person and knowing that they're always going to be there. Yeah, it is a lot of pressure. I think there have been parts in relationships I've been in where there's a lot of pressure because you are that one sole thing that can rely on. But then I look at it and see it's not, I'm not just getting that support from someone I'm in a relationship with. I have family, I have friends where I can get that support from them. But I'm not just going to start shagging my sister. I'll talk to my sister about problems, but I won't, I'll talk, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, definitely. But it's like, for me, the natural next step is then saying, like, why does this really valuable connection you have to be something that's sexually and romantically exclusive?
Right.
Okay. Why would compromising on those things undermine the intimacy and the amount you can rely on one another? Maybe only because of like how difficult it is to go against what is normal. I'm not saying it's not difficult to do that.
No, I'm open. Like, you can ask me whatever. No, that's that is in regards to that, with that separating the sexual parts of a relationship with the emotional, I would say the two aren't entirely separate for me. And that's maybe where we differ, is because that emotional connection makes me much more intimate with my partner, I would say. And I've definitely found that sexually it has been better the better I know the person intimately. For me anyway. I mean, I'm only young. I don't know how it goes. But for now, that's my naive kind of view on it.
And I don't disagree, you know, like, and I definitely think I'm the sort of person that prefers like a long-term sexual connection. Power to whoever wants to do whatever.
Yeah.
And I love that works for them.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen to work for me. But I get that same effect, you know, you can still build intimacy and sexual like dialogue and learn each other over time, whilst also doing that with someone else, you know. And it's like, I think it's interesting, maybe you're working on the assumption that there is like a limit to the amount of sort of intimacy you can have and share among people. That
like, I'm a
isn't
500 milliliter
necessarily-
bottle. I'm like a can of Coke, whereas you're like a 2-liter share bottle of capacity. Maybe that's
or
where it
maybe we all just assume that there's a little bit less
Yeah.
potential for love there. In general.
Mm.
I think also, sorry, you mentioned earlier, and I forgot to mention it. You said you really like having that ability to like rely on someone. You know, that's really meaningful to you. I do rely on my partners, and you know, like
solely rely. I think I said like I think that was interesting to speak about. Yeah, is that connection, that vulnerability. But yeah, you're saying that you're able to do that with all those people. So I don't think that's me saying that you can't do that within your relationship.
Maybe it just doesn't work for you. Sure.
Yeah,
or
maybe we don't know.
We don't know.
We
I
don't
mean,
know.
it just
I
you
think,
know, for a lot of people, it's not worth ever exploring because you never have the passion for it. And I think you've got to have a lot of
people get
passion
used
for
to
it.
things, right? This is also a thing as well. You've got people in marriages which are unhappy, but they're scared, they're cozy, they're comfortable. They may not be happy, but they're comfortable. That's interesting. I've got a 9 to 5. It's not that great. I actually hate who I work with, but I've got a roof over my head and I've got nice meals, so I'm just gonna suck it up for the next 60 years.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that is having something that makes me feel a lot more stable in my relationships, is knowing that because I'm not saying, oh, this is the only person I can ever have sex with, this is the only person I can ever be romantically involved with, those relationships actually become a lot more resilient. Because once they, you know, if we're in a difficult spot, if I'm in a difficult spot with my long-term partner, and we can't provide each other with the means of meeting certain of those needs, it doesn't mean that we have to discard everything, you know. I think for me personally, it like really allows me to be very invested in the fact that relationships evolve over time, our needs evolve over time, and that it's okay to explore different ways of meeting those needs, you know. I think, and for me, like, being polyamorous has really improved the quality of my long-term relationship. For 3 of the 5 years that I've been with that partner, we were the only people that each other saw. Not because we were monogamous, we were always from the start open. We sort of like built it on the fact that we didn't think that we needed these forms of exclusivity, or they didn't, you know, make sense to us. But we just happened to not see anyone else. But after the fact, sort of having more people come into my life, I think that relationship has become a lot stronger. You know, like, we aren't having as much conflict about like certain unhappinesses, because my social world, her social world, are healthier. We're feeling more sort of fulfilled and secure, and that does just benefit our relationship in quite a meaningful way.
I'm about to cry.
Okay, keep it bottled up.
Okay.
Might be
You're
progressive
telling a man
in some
not to
ways.
express.
Yeah, I know. I absolutely am.
You're telling me to bottle
I
up my
really do
emotions.
support toxic masculinity.
You look
You
like it.
heard it here. Okay?
As soon as you got here, I was like, you're
a man-hating lesbian.
Wow.
Is that it?
I think that would be quite
In the
intimidating.
flesh.
That would be quite intimidating for a lot of guys.
Yeah.
I feel like if you told them that, they wouldn't even know what to say. I feel like.
Do it for the shock factor.
Damn. Yeah.
Um,
Have you heard that a lot of people's capacity for love increases when they have children? Have you heard this? Like,
do we believe that?
how much do you believe about that?
I
Or
don't
maybe
believe
it's the
that.
fact that people like they become more caring, kind of because they need, like, there is that instinctual thing to protect, and when you have a kid, like, well, I don't know how it is for women, but yeah, there's that thing as well. But it's interesting. My capacity for love may increase over time, but yeah. So you're under the belief that there isn't a cap for that. And you're more swayed on the side that everyone, it's just a key that needs to be turned in anyone, but they have to turn it themselves. Do you get what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, I do. I think I do. I would say that, like, yeah, I think that we have more capacity to love than maybe we think we do. We also just are loving in big ways all the time. We're just putting like that love in different places. And dude, don't get me started on the definition of love. I think it's like such an analytically interesting concept, and I will ruin it for everyone by bringing out every theory under the sun. But I would say that, like, well, let me collect my thoughts for a second.
Collect them.
That was awful. Please cut that out, please. That made me so deeply uncomfortable.
Are you not comfortable with silence?
What?
Wow, this could turn into a therapy session. Just like if you're listening, she's just laid back on a couch ready to be therapy. So yeah, how was your relationship with your father?
Oh,
no,
I love that guy, man.
Damn, yeah. And yeah, so yeah,
what
love.
What
was your definition for love, May?
Oh, let me collect my thought on the other thing very quickly before we get into
it's
that.
all good.
I had something that I wanted to say. You're gonna have to cut so much of this little section out.
This section's been fine.
Okay.
I think we're doing amazing, May.
Oh, I'm so proud of us.
Katie,
Look at what we're creating. Katie, you were the joy in this room.
Yeah. No, I think it is fascinating that we're talking about this and you looking over at Katie when we're talking. Have you ever considered polyamory?
No, I
ever considered breaking up with your girl?
It always feels like I'm pushing the poly agenda.
Yeah, you're just
but
like...
it's not the intention, guys. I accept you.
What if next
I'm
week...
like really accepting.
What if by next week I have
different.
5 partners and like I've one up to you?
Not you, Eddie, but she might.
Damn, how many do you think I've got in me if I did decide? Do you think do you think I do have an unlocked key? Like, let's take away, this is all hypothetical. Yeah, looking at me, you don't know me that well, but like, you know, analyze me a bit, you know,
visually or no, I get it.
Hey, audio, listen to me on audio, it's fine. Listen to me on audio. No,
Eddie, I don't mean it. I'm just a dickhead inherently.
I think when I was single, I didn't see like it as I could have multiple partners. I've never even considered that, but that might be just because I'm not being exposed to it. Do you think do you hang around? I know you're obviously in relationships, but do you have friends who are also polyamorous?
No, I don't actually.
Damn.
Not really. I think it's more that people are becoming a lot more open to it. So when things arise with new people, often they might just be like, "Oh, actually, hadn't thought about this, but I don't think I have a problem with it." And that's what happened with my most recent partner.
Yeah.
She very much was not someone who identified with it prior to. She didn't necessarily identify with monogamy either. It's just she had never had an opportunity to think, what would relating to someone in a romantic way look like for me, right? And I think that's the big thing. It's like, and I think this is actually what I lost earlier when I lost a little thought. It's like, it's not that I'm not making a choice to like, you know, go out and recruit as many troops as possible.
Right. Yeah.
You know, collect the fruit for my fruit basket.
Polyamorous
That is a queer
Pokemon.
joke
Just
that we'll ever
fruit basket. Yeah.
I know. My favorite thing to do now is be like, guys, too many fruit in the fruit basket.
Yeah.
Can't take another one.
You want like a variety
So
of fruit.
sorry.
You don't want like 5 oranges. You want like an
I
apple,
don't
banana.
mind. I
Oh,
don't
you
mind.
like you
Because here's what I'm gonna say, Eddie, to you right now. This is
So,
really
like-
a build-up. This is such a build-up. Is that it's not about like collecting them all. Yeah, they're not Pokemon. Was that a joke someone made?
I
And
made
I've
that
just
joke.
stolen.
But you know, you
Fantastic.
said your joke, so I kind of let you have it.
Oh.
I was going like,
Okay.
polyamorous Pokemon. You know, it was.
Men have
but
been
it w-
stealing women's ideas for so long that I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah, that's
flipping
fine. There you go.
the
There you go as well.
script,
Yeah.
man. But it's like, it's just about when something arises with someone, I'm not repressing it.
right.
You know,
yeah.
it's just that because I don't actively recruit. You know, I'm not going out
Yeah.
on dating apps. Power to whoever does. It seems fascinating. I want to give it a try someday. But it is just like I meet people in my life and I feel a connection and things develop in a certain way, and I don't feel that I have a duty to my partner and she doesn't feel that I have a duty to me. You know, well, neither of them do. To stop that from happening.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
And so it's not really about like trying hard to love as much as you can with as many people as you can.
Right.
It's just about letting things in my life flow more organically.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
And that's what's worked for you. Have you found it? So you said ever since you were 17, right? This is when you started on journey. Rough. Am I...
No, not at all. Keep going. Anyway, let's just move on.
No, but have you found that's like kind of helped you in other areas of your life? Like how was that change, and what change have you seen in yourself?
God, I mean, one of the most like intoxicating parts of this for me is having the opportunity to challenge like really difficult feelings like jealousy. Like everyone wants to talk about jealousy, right? Because it's such a big uncomfortable feeling. I hate it. I still experience it. I've been dealing with it a lot recently, but having that sort of shoved on your plate and being like, I need to deal with this is such a wonderful opportunity. I don't want to live the rest of my life having jealous feelings like getting me down.
No.
And sort of having to deal with the fact that my partners don't owe me exclusivity, and that our relationship, I think inherently at it, like at the core of it, it's about coming to terms with the fact that your relationships are always changing and will always change, regardless of how much you want them to stay the same.
Yeah.
You know? And it forces you to come to terms with that in such a meaningful way. Like I feel so much stronger in myself being able to say, I can't control what happens here, but I can enjoy it in the moment. And I can survive. Survive's a pretty dramatic word.
Yeah, you're not
honestly.
going through World War II. Jesus Christ.
I can cope with the consequences of any changes that occur. You know, I think I'm in that way, I would say I'm a lot more resilient.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a wonderful thing to feel. And that then in turn means that I get to enjoy my relationships so much more because I'm not constantly worried about them going away, you know. And also just like bringing gratitude for what you have at that moment into practice in that meaningful way, it just is such a wonderful way to live. You know,
that's nice. I think jealousy is definitely one of the like most unattractive emotions you see someone portray. If you see someone jealous, they could be the most like respected person. As soon as you see an ounce of jealousy in someone, it's just not desirable. But we all experience it, but it's how you experience it in different ways. And I think it's not just in romantic relationships. You've got work. This editor, he's like so much better than me. He's actually you can look at it in a constructive way. I don't know how you turn it in a relationship sense, but with jealousy, my relationship over the last 2 years has changed dramatically. I think I've changed it from, there's a lot of reasons why that guy's doing better than me. There's reasons why things happen, but that's interesting. In a relationship, I don't know if it's the same, right? It's so much more fragile. You've got two minds, you've got different personalities. It's just like, are your partners very different in like personality, or is there like kind of,
oh god,
yeah,
opposite.
You don't have a type, or do you think?
No, I don't think I really do. They're very different people. Yeah, they could in some ways like polar opposite people, which is really interesting, and makes for a really interesting life experience, man. It's sort of like, you know, I'm sure this shows, like, I love discussion and I love getting to those nitty-gritty stupid little philosophical questions and fucking about with them, and getting to do that by like running off to one partner and being like, what do you think about this? And then having a completely different perspective from another partner. There's such cool dialogue in it, honestly. But you know, again, it's like, it doesn't feel like a crazy thing. It's just like having friends that are just incredibly different people, but it just looks meaningfully different. You did actually raise, and this is something that really I have yet to figure out. You raised a while ago the question of like, or at least you hinted at it, the question of like, what then makes a relationship a relationship? And that is such an interesting one for me, you know, and something I would love to get at more. What do you think makes a relationship, if not exclusivity?
Okay, yeah, because I would just say the boring answer. You know, you're in one way related to someone, but relationship. What do I think it personally, or like I think it's a relation, like a baseline relation. Well, there's different types of relationships, sure, but I think it is in a way that emotional kind of connection you have with someone, in a way that, like, for me, just being able to the ability to say anything and to have any problem on your mind and you can just voice it, kind of a bit like a therapist, but a therapist that doesn't charge you like £50 an hour, you know?
So free labor.
Labor,
the emotional labor of women.
Yeah, well, it's the way around. I have to
Oh
listen
my
to her, you know.
God.
Women, am I right? God. Anyway, what do you think a relationship is?
I think it was so fun watching you struggle. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
No, I like questions. It's fun.
No, I know. I like questions too. And I
like hearing my own voice.
Fuck off. Get out of here. My podcast now.
Damn.
Katie, get on the couch. We'll talk
Katie,
about how much we hate Eddie.
Damn, yeah. So, yeah, what do you think a relationship is?
Well, that's the thing. I would struggle to define it.
You just saw me just like, well, there's different types of relationships.
Exactly.
There's this, there's that. Yeah.
And it's like, it's such a fun thing to think about, because whilst you're like existing in this framework, this world that says that like what a relationship is romantic and sexual exclusivity, which, you know, is at its core the thing that differentiates it from the other forms that we see, like friendship, and the like.
Some people it crosses over. Some people in the South America like doing that with a family member, but you know, not everyone. In most cases, it's not. There's no overlap. But yeah, carry on.
You're such an open mind.
I am, and if I talk to someone, I think I would have someone. I wouldn't like make it seem good, but I'd have them on, talk to them about it. Wouldn't that be interesting?
About incest?
Yeah.
You'd like to do an incest
podcast? No. I wouldn't like to do incest. I'd like to... Yeah. But what? Wouldn't that
you
be...
heard it here, guys.
If I was at a pub...
Eddie would do it.
If I was at a pub, right, and someone pointed and go, yo, that guy over there, he fucks his sister.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like talk to him the whole night, but I want to like get inside his mind.
Would you think he was a morally bad person? Just curious.
I would look at him and go, something in your childhood, like I wouldn't. If I was drunk, I'd probably have that classic thing. What a weirdo! But like he's probably had some fucked shit happen in his childhood, right? Probably.
Well, let's not
I'd
get
like to
into
think
that.
anyway. I'd like to, the glass is half full. Let's just say that. But yeah, man, this has been.
That's an interesting one.
This is,
But yeah, what I mean to say is not so much to bring the whole family thing
yeah,
into
yeah,
it,
sure.
which you keep doing.
Yeah, keep it in the family, right?
Okay, yeah. This is really painting a very particular image of you.
Right.
Sure. It's fine. I'm so sorry, Kate. Cut this out. This whole podcast is just gonna be me saying cut this out.
Yeah.
You can cut out anything but me saying cut this out.
Yeah.
That'll
yeah.
be the whole. God damn.
Anyway,
Sorry.
yeah,
I
no.
was saying, like, like, the reason I even choose certain labels is like such a fascinating thing. Like, when I first started, being official with this new partner, like, we had the conversation. We were like, well, what does that mean for us? And the conclusion was, I guess nothing. But it's a way of communicating our relationship to people that makes sense to them. Makes it a little bit more familiar, because everyone, if you're like romantically and sexually involved with someone, and you're not calling them your partner, everyone's like, what is this, man?
Yeah,
The
I don't
world is
know.
crumbling. And it was just like, you kind of like, you want to buy into the legitimacy a little bit. Like, polyamorous relationships are not afforded as much legitimacy,
Right.
generally. And sometimes we co-opt the language to try and like gain that
Yeah.
a little bit, I think. And but that was the thought process at the time. But to be fair, sort of going into it now, sort of having been doing it a month, it has really meaningfully changed the way that we've related to one another.
Okay.
And that's really interesting. Like, thinking about all of the like cultural expectations that are placed on that label that then are just actually just so hard to get yourself around, and not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like, we have much healthier communication because there's like an expectation that we want it to be a long-term thing. Like,
Right.
for me, maybe that's what labeling it is about. It's about saying, even though I've said all this shit about acknowledging that relationships will change and they might end, like, labeling the relationship in this circumstance really felt like a commitment to trying to keep that relationship going in whatever form it can go in,
Right.
for a long period of time. But it is, I mean, I more sort of bring it up because it just identifies like how many inherent conflicts there are in the way that we make sense of our own experiences all the time, which I think is such a fun thing to think about. But a lot of people hate it.
Labels, yeah, it's a weird one because labels make things, naming and makes everything easy to understand, so we can communicate. Like, we can have this conversation now because there are words, and sometimes these words have nuances to them. Like, it's not black and white and this and that. But I think there's two sides to the coin, because now more people are aware of, say, what we're talking about today. Polygamy. Fuck.
Oh,
Polyamory. Fuck. I was doing so fucking good this whole podcast. Fuck.
Have you been practicing?
No, I didn't practice. Well, I wasn't in front of the mirror last night, I promise. No. But yeah, and then there's the other side, because of course, if we have these simple labels, people just kind of assume things, and sometimes you'll say a word and someone won't say it, but they'll think of this thing, and then I say it to you, and you're thinking the exact opposite. It's hard.
Yeah, it sort of brings an interesting question that I don't know how to resolve into conversations about polyamory. That is, like, even though I think it's very valuable to be working on deconstructing all of these ideas about how we need to relate to other people, we also need to understand that there is some value in these narratives that help us navigate our lives without like having to ask every single question, right?
Yeah.
And like, my big sort of fun question of the moment is, how do I use those narratives, so the narratives that we've had sort of build through cultural standards of monogamy for centuries, at least here, how do I sort of make them work for my purposes whilst I'm doing something very, in some ways, very different. And there's a fun little conflict there.
I can see how that could be hard, because you're building off something which is very much, well, a lot of it, you know, it's the opposite of what you're doing. It goes against, but that's all we know. And well, when we're trying to learn, we always look at the past, but there's not much past to look at. Well,
you know,
maybe you could tell me.
Ways. I'm no expert. I haven't actually done a lot of the research on it, but I think maybe what we want to do now is reformulate what you've been saying about like the whole like constructing the narrative from the ground up that we use to figure out how we like want to relate to one another, into like reformulate that as sort of like reconstructing, you know. So we are using a lot of the building blocks that are wisdoms that have come from monogamous practice, and just changing them in certain ways. I think, you know, like it says a lot about the fact that we need to maybe treat them as less like diametrically opposed. It's not, we don't have radically different ways of relating to our partners or partner. We just, you know, it's just treated like we do.
I think just for the near distant future, obviously I can't speak for where we'll be in, you know, hundreds of years, but I think it always comes back from the majority of people are in monogamous relationships or thing. So it will always come from the largest voice will be that. So I can kind of see from your perspective how it could be hard to navigate these conversations sometimes. And do you feel as if like you are like constantly having to educate people? Like I talk to other people, you know, queer people, you know, you got transgender people. Like it does feel with some of them, I get the sentiment that some of them are sick of explaining it. Yeah, like I don't know.
I know that that's a lot of people's experience. Some people just hate it. I love it. I really enjoy having conversations with people who express interest, not interest in necessarily becoming polyamorous.
This is me. This podcast is me coming out as polyamorous.
Oh, jeez.
No, it's a joke. It's a joke.
No. Don't do it.
Sorry,
she's too good. But like people who are just curious and want to hear about it. I love having that dialogue, because a lot of the times you end up in a position that's really heartening, sort of seeing someone who maybe was a little bit anxious about the ideas that you're presenting, sort of come to terms with them and see how like normal they can be, like how like getting rid of that idea of like radical difference and scary difference, you know what I mean? That can be, I think that's really rewarding, honestly. And I think honestly, you know, you said the conversation will always be dominated by monogamy,
like for the short
sure, but I do think that is changing meaningfully now. And we live, I mean, I at least live in a little bubble. I'm at university, I'm in a big city, I'm visibly queer, and so certain people probably run away from me as if I'm going to infect them.
Visibly queer, and they run with fear.
Oh, love that. Putting that on a badge.
That wasn't me God, I hope that doesn't get taken out of context. That sounds like some sort of like you know, superhero or something. Like maybe you could be, I'm not like, maybe something, there's something there, I feel like, right?
I'm trying to think of a good name for a superhero.
He saves like all the people who don't want to come out. So there's like all these people in the world who, you know, they're scared of coming out of the closet, and he talks to them before he gives them a pep talk, right? Maybe that's what you could be.
Come out, Colin. I don't know.
There you go.
I don't know.
We need,
Don't be
maybe
nice to
there
me
needs
about
to be
one.
that.
Oh shit, that was really bad.
Damn.
Cut it out the podcast. No.
Damn, anything is like, do you think if I cut out everything that wasn't funny, I wouldn't have a podcast? Okay,
Yeah.
so just deal
Well,
with it,
sometimes I think you got everything that is funny. No, I'm sorry,
yeah.
Eddie.
Sometimes you
Fuck.
think that is true though. I'm not sometimes aware what's funny. Yeah, it's interesting.
No,
man.
I really don't mean it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what were we talking about anyway? Yeah, I think. Wow. Do you have to get off soon? What's your not get off? Like I mean, go somewhere soon. Because I think those were that was.
Katie's like, whoa.
Yeah,
in the corner
yeah, like
is
I was
what's
like,
in it
yeah.
for that.
Do you yeah? What I'm about to say, those were mainly my questions. I mean,
Okay.
this was being like so insightful. I mean, is there what were we talking about before? I think a good way to round this off is sorry,
He's
you just
frazzled,
skewed me.
boy.
No, you
He's
frazzle me
frazzled.
because you've like made me go third person because you've like gone.
Just blown up.
Yeah, you've gone. Oh,
mind.
you're actually unintentionally funny, and now my ego is just massive. So
Sorry, what?
no, because she was
He's
saying.
processing. Let him process.
Yeah, can
Let
you
him
let me
cook.
process? No, I was saying she was saying how sometimes I'm unintentionally funny, and I was going like sometimes what I think's funny and what I'm gonna say is funny. People like laugh at the other part of it, which I don't think's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
I think one person said that sometimes I dig holes like in my own explanation, and that's what they find funny,
Sorry, you just told me.
which is right now.
You just
Which
told
is
me
right
about
now.
The hate comments that keep you up.
Yeah, the hate comments are great as well. Yeah, they're fucking hilarious. They are hilarious. I love them.
Can you tell me about the one that you responded to? Okay?
Oh yeah. So I don't know if you know Tommy Fury, Tommy from KSI. Two influencers are boxing,
Yeah.
and I go, oh, I think this one professional boxer
Mm.
will beat this amateur boxer. You know, he's only been boxing for a year, and the guy in the comment goes, the amateur boxer could knock you out, and then I just go, yes, he definitely would. The only comment I've ever responded
Facts,
to. The only
bro.
comment I've ever responded to.
Bare facts.
And I
No,
stopped
don't
that
take
conversation.
that out.
There
Take
you
that
go,
out.
Jimmy. Don't fucking comment again, buddy, or you'll get shut down. Okay?
Nice.
There you go. But
Yeah. Have
yeah.
you blocked anyone? Do you block people?
no, I don't block anyone.
How do you cope with the hate?
I just let it go. I
Let it
sometimes read
go.
them for funnies, but I don't think you should block it. I like them.
Yeah.
I think TikTok
There,
is
a lot of them are very unoriginal.
Yeah.
I'm looking for some really creative hate.
Oh, there's some good
actually.
ones for sure. There's,
Yeah.
but
Do you
few and far
compile
between.
them?
I think I'm gonna create.
Or
I
is
should
there like a
definitely
vault in your brain where they all
I should
live?
do like
They're
yeah.
compiled in a sense.
I should do like a video on it, like just a whole hate. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
Compiled in the notes of your therapist.
yeah, it's
That's it.
interesting though because that's where a lot of people are getting their feedback from nowadays. Is just
Uh-huh.
comments on social media, isn't it? Fuck me. Deep, man. It's deep shit.
man.
Do you think I've sometimes thought therapy? Like, have you ever needed therapy?
Yeah, I've been to therapy.
Damn, how was that for you? I
It's
thought
great.
sometimes.
I
like
loved
that.
my therapist.
Yeah.
It was like a big old goss sesh.
Oh really?
It was and
Did
all
he?
about
Did
me.
he/she give you goss?
No, but it was like she practiced this form of counseling called Jasalt, I think.
Jasalt.
Counseling, Jasalt, maybe.
Wow.
I could be saying that wrong. It's all embedded in the theory of like you need to create like a reciprocal relationship with the person you're counseling. So it's not true therapy, but counseling.
So it's kind of, was it like cheaper therapy because she was like doing?
Well, it's free.
Oh
you know.
damn! So
Yeah,
she,
I got
maybe
it- I
maybe
got
she
it
wasn't
from
even a real
charity.
Damn, sorry, I like choked. I like choked on that. But yeah, so it sounds like she was practicing some new form of that. Damn.
Well,
okay.
no, actually, it's the predominant mode of counselling in
yeah.
mainland Europe, which tends
Yeah.
to do things a bit better, some would argue. But it was shocking for a little while. Like I'd tell her something pretty heavy, and she'd sort of sit there for a little while, and then she'd be like, "Yeah, that made me really anxious." I was like, "Oh,
Damn!
oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry."
You,
Should I leave?
you started
Should I
therapizing
leave?
her? Like, it's all right. It's all right.
Honestly,
Damn.
I understand how you feel because that made me really anxious
Wow.
too. But no,
Yeah.
but in the end, it actually did create like an environment that was a lot more conducive to sort of sharing.
Mm.
And yeah, it was always the case that she'd tell me what she thought, Or like her, not like she wouldn't be like, you're a fucking cunt, mate.
Yeah, you're
Who the fuck does that,
Yeah,
lol? You've
fucking
lost
silly
all
cunt.
your friends.
Yeah.
But she would, you know, be like, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And just give me a space to talk out my shit. And I obviously love talking. So it was great. We had some really good goss sessions about my life, pretty much exclusively. And then we discovered we both really love Kate Bush. And now I feel like we're friends, but I can't see her anymore. So.
Yeah, once you've seen a therapist, like, in formal therapy, you can't see them outside.
Yeah,
Is that how it
exactly.
works?
It's
That's
kind of
so
sad. Yeah, we had this really interesting conversation. Our final session, like I was feeling fine. Like I dealt with a lot of the shit that I went into counseling to deal with. And so we just had a lovely long chat about her relationship with therapy. It was so interesting, man. And she was talking about like how she deals with the grief of letting like people that she's built a relationship with go, which is such an inherent part of her job. You don't think about it.
No.
You don't think about how the therapist
They're just
feels.
absorbing so much trauma.
Exactly.
Like, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
what, like 8-9 times a day? Imagine if they got a fully booked schedule. God. Jesus.
And sometimes you really connect with the people
Yeah.
that you're talking to. So interesting. And like talked about music and the way that we use music to process grief and like the catharsis that you can find in that. She was a fascinating woman.
Yeah, I definitely in sixth form I listened to sad boy rap. That got me through some heartbreaks, you know.
What kind of
Juice WRLD, that guy.
Oh, okay.
And that guy. Now I've developed from that to folk and country music.
Oh,
Weird
go
genre,
back.
weird genre mix, right? Oh, I fucking
Yeah.
love it. I think I'm on some sort of ranch in Ohio when I'm listening to that shit.
Mm.
I think
Is that the aim?
nothing. Maybe it is. Maybe we
Maybe.
should work that. But
Farmers
yeah,
are notoriously unhappy.
really.
Yeah, you know, like rates of suicide among farmers is like really high. How unstable the work is and how
Well, that could just be they
undervalued
have.
their labor is. Sorry
They
for
could
breaking your
No,
dreams.
that's fine. I'm just thinking they probably have higher rates of death because they're just around so many dangerous tools. Like maybe that's
It's
why. Maybe.
Suicide, I'm afraid.
Oh damn. Okay. God.
Pretty-
Always have to lower the
sure.
tone, don't you? Lower the.
I
mood.
really, yeah. I'm sorry, Eddie. I'm sure you can have your lovely little horsey and your lovely little cowboy.
Nah, I
boots.
wouldn't get a horse. Fuck that. I want to. What would I get? I want a
A
dog.
camel.
First thing on a
Okay.
farm, a dog. Get like a nice dog that can
I
catch
think
all the
I'd
little
start with ducks. Actually,
ducks.
yeah,
Ducks,
ducks.
yeah, ducks.
She gets it.
She's just a yes man in the corner. Don't listen to her.
They're
You know.
good. They eat slugs. Gardener's best friend, ducks.
Ducks.
If anyone wants to gift me with anything, a duck. That's it. Top of my wish list.
Oh god. Well, I think the cameras are gonna die anyway.
Oh,
so
shit, sorry.
we might have to leave this shit soon. But
Oops.
this has been fucking amazing, to be honest. I've had such an interesting chat.
Amazing.
Right now, just quit while you're ahead, okay?
I've never been ahead. I'm a whole human.
Damn.
Fuck.
Was that like the best compliment I've ever given you? Don't quit while you're right. So yeah, no. Is there anything you kind of wanna like any website, any like charity, like anything you kind of want to promote or anything?
Oh my
like
gosh, should I do like a cute little link?
Yeah.
Fantastic little thing. If you're interested in polyamory or even just, you know, updating your monogamy a little bit, giving it a little
Software
boot.
update.
Yeah, something that's what I was trying to get up. Look at the Relationship Anarchists Manifesto, I think it's called. It's really interesting. It's not a difficult read, but it says some things that people might really benefit from hearing.
Nice.
Just Google it, you'll find
Relationship. Say it again. Sorry.
it. Relationship Anarchist Manifesto. I
Nice.
think.
Okay. Maybe I can link it or something.
Yeah.
Maybe link it down there.
It's a really interesting piece of literature for everyone,
Mhm.
regardless of how many bitches you be bitching, you know?
One at the moment. I'm bitching. At the
Okay.
moment. Yeah. She's beautiful lady. So
Yeah, no, it
not
wasn't.
A, yeah. Yeah.
It's not
Is
always
it-
about you, Eddie.
Oh well.
Jesus Christ.
actually,
The people,
it is my
the
podcast,
people,
so
and
you know.
no one listens to it. So
Damn.
it's
Actually,
just
it's,
us.
It's just like therapy, really. It's just like
Oh my
kind of.
God.
This is
Is
what
this
it
'cause
is.
you
It's
can't
just.
afford therapy?
Yeah, I just invited you round, and guess what? Didn't have to pay you a dime.
Fuck! I paid for my own bus fare.
Fuck.
I've been scammed.
Damn. Is there any like? Also, do you like people knowing you on social media? Can I link any of that?
God, no, forget this face.
Right. Okay. So it's fine. We'll leave that.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for coming. It's been amazing. Thank you, Katie, for sorting out. This has been Maeve, and I'm called Eddie.
Did you just call me Maeve, mate?
Wait, can I just say why I've
It's
called
my
you? Can I explain
theonym.
why I've called you Maeve? I've just been working with someone in the shop called Maeve. So
It's a beautiful name.
yeah, it's Maeve. Maybe it should be
I'll
Maeve.
take it.
No, thank you guys for listening. We are available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, not Apple Music, one of those, and all the social medias. TikTok is a great one. Hop in the comments. It's a fucking ride of a time. How it goes. All right, well, that's been it for us and Polyamorous Maeve.
Toodles.
That's all she is. That's all she is. May is just
Maeve.
May is. That's all she. I don't. You know.
Essentialized. Shit, not again.
Thank you for
Anyway.
coming on. See you later, guys.